Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be covering problems 1 and 2 from today's lecture worksheet. Let's get started with problem 1 by unrolling the loop. In order to unroll the loop, we need to focus on the places where the loop condition variable is being updated or subject to the condition. That would be the parts which I'm highlighting using my yellow marker. The loop condition variable is countdown, which is initialized to a value of 5. Then the condition is checking whether countdown is greater than 1. For every iteration of the while loop, we are decrementing the value of countdown by 1. So when you unroll this particular loop, countdown is going to take the values of 5, 4, 3 and 2. Why is it not taking the value of 1? That's because the condition here is checking countdown greater than 1. When countdown is 1, the loop condition will evaluate to false. That's because 1 is not greater than 1. As soon as the loop condition evaluates to false, the loop execution terminates. After you have unrolled the loop, you need to focus on the parts of the loop body which will get repetitively executed. That would be the print function call, which I am marking off using the dotted red box. Observe that this part is not a block of code by itself. The block of code here will include the countdown decrement line, and that would be the entire loop body. Once we mark off the part of the loop that's going to get repetitively executed after we unroll the loop, we can proceed with checking the output of the program. In this particular example, we only have the print function call to display the value inside the countdown variable. So the output of the program is simply going to be 5, 4, 3 and 2. If the loop condition were to be countdown greater than or equal to 1, then the output of the program would be 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. Let's move on to problem 2. Problem 2 is tricky because it contains nested loops. What are nested loops? When you have a loop inside another loop, it's called as nested loops. The loop which is outside is called as the outer loop, and the loop which is inside is called as the inner loop. The key with nested loops is that you need to unroll the outer loop first before you unroll the inner loop. Let's mark off the blocks of code here so that it's easy for us to understand. The first block of code would be for the outer loop, which I'm highlighting using the red box right now. Then the next block of code is going to be for the inner loop, which is going to be the parts which I'm marking off now with another red box. Observe that you have few lines of code within the outer loop after the inner loop's body here. Let's get started by unrolling the outer loop. The outer loop has loop condition variable of I, so we need to focus on the places where I is being updated and subject to condition. That would be the parts which I'm highlighting using the yellow marker. As you can see, I takes the values of 1, 2 and 3 when you unroll the loop. We are initializing I to a value of 1. Then the condition is checking I less than or equal to 3. And every time the loop iteration goes through, we increment the value of I by 1. So when we unroll the outer loop, I is going to take the values of 1, 2 and 3. Let me just list those I values here. What we are going to do next is that we are going to focus on a single iteration of the outer loop, and then we are going to unroll the inner loop for that particular iteration. Let's consider the iteration where I takes a value of 2. The first line of code that will get executed is initializing the value of the variable j to 1. Let's focus on the places where the inner loop condition variable is being updated. That would be the initialization statement here, and we are going to mark off the condition. And finally you have the increment, which is incrementing the value of j by 1. J is initialized to 1. The condition here is checking j less than or equal to I. Observe that the condition is checking less than or equal to I. Then the increment here is for one value at a time for one iteration. Since I has a value of 1 in the current outer loop iteration, j is going to run only with a value of 1, correct? That's because 1 is less than or equal to 1, and when j becomes 2, the loop condition is no longer satisfied. So the j values for this particular iteration of the I outer while loop is simply going to be 1. So now let's focus on the part of the inner loop which is going to get repetitively executed. That would be the print function call, which is displaying the value of I. Pay close attention to the fact that the print function call here is displaying I and not j. Since we are displaying I, the program is going to output 1, and what's going to happen after that? The inner while loop execution will terminate. That's because the next time when you try to check the condition, j becomes 2. 2 is no longer less than or equal to 1. So the inner while loop will terminate. Then you are going to execute the print function call, which is outside the inner while loop's body. That's going to print end here. Let me tag the output of the program with the word output. That will be it for the first iteration of the outer while loop, correct? Let's move on to the second iteration of the outer while loop, which has I value of 2 here. Why did we ignore the last line, which is incrementing I by a value of 1? That's because we've already unrolled the loop, correct? So if we were to focus on the parts of the outer loop that will get repetitively executed, that would be the part which I am marking off with the red dotted box. Observe that the red dotted box is including the print function call for displaying end. Let's move on to second iteration where I takes a value of 2. J once again gets initialized to 1. Every time you start the outer loop, every line of code within the outer loop body will get executed again. So you're going to initialize j to a value of 1. Your inner loop condition is checking j less than or equal to I. So j is going to take the values of 1 and 2, correct? That's because I takes a value of 2. So when you execute the part of the loop body for the inner loop that gets repetitively executed, you're calling the print function to display I. Once again, we are displaying I and not j. I has a value of 2. So the program is going to display 2 first. And then what would happen? You're done with the j value of 1. You'll move on to incrementing j variable to 2. 2 is still less than or equal to 2. So you're going to run the part of the inner loop body which is going to get repetitively executed. Since we are displaying I, we are going to display 2 again. Now j will take a value of 3. When j becomes 3, your loop condition for the inner loop is no longer satisfied. So 3 is not less than or equal to 2. So your inner loop execution will terminate, and you're going to once again display end because the print function call for displaying end is outside the inner loop body. Once you're done with that, the only line of code to execute within the outer loop is the increment. We have already taken care of that. So we are going to move on to the third value taken by I, which is 3. So j is going to take the values of 1, 2 and 3, correct? That's because j is initialized to 1. J is less than or equal to I is the condition, and the increment for j is simply 1. So if you follow the same set of execution, you're going to get I value displayed when j is 1. So I has a value of 3. So 3 should get displayed. When j is 2, I takes a value of 3 again because we are still within the same iteration for the outer loop. And then when j is 3, I still has a value of 3. When j becomes 4, your loop condition is no longer satisfied because 4 is not less than or equal to 3. So you're going to finally display end and you'll be done with the program execution. The main parts for you to focus on here is make sure that you unroll the outer loop and you don't have to go back to any parts of the outer loop which have already been taken care of when it comes to unrolling. That will be it for this video. In the next video, we are going to learn about the break statement.